When Michael Jackson's voice cracked and stopped mid-song, the 80,000-person arena fell into dead silence. The king of pop, mid-verse in "She's Out of My Life," suddenly froze. His hand went to his mouth. His eyes closed. Tears visible under the spotlight. The band kept playing for 3 more seconds before they too stopped. Then nothing. Just 80,000 people holding their breath. Waiting. Watching the world's biggest superstar break down on stage. But this wasn't a breakdown. This was the moment Michael Jackson saw something in the crowd that changed everything. A sign. A face. A child who shouldn't have been there. And what happened next, nobody was ready for. If you want to see how one moment of pure humanity can stop the world's biggest concert, subscribe now, because what Michael did next proves why he was more than just an entertainer. 3 hours earlier, backstage at Wembley Stadium, London, 1988. The Bad World Tour. Sold out? Every seat. Michael Jackson's team moved with military precision. Sound check. Costume adjustments. Security briefings. Everything calculated. Everything controlled. This was the biggest tour in history. Nothing could go wrong. Michael sat alone in his dressing room, white glove already on, fedora beside him. He always needed these quiet minutes before going on stage. To center himself. To remember why he did this. His manager knocked. "Michael, we have a situation." Outside, in the arena's medical bay, a mother was arguing with security. Her son, 7-year-old Daniel, terminally ill with leukemia, had collapsed during the crowd entry. The boy's final wish was to see Michael Jackson perform. The mother had saved for 2 years to buy tickets. But now Daniel was too weak to sit in the stands. Security protocol was clear: medical emergencies must leave the venue. The mother was crying. "Please! Please! He has weeks. Maybe days." This is all he wanted. But Michael Jackson wasn't supposed to know about this. Nobody was supposed to tell him. And yet somehow, word reached his dressing room. And when Michael Jackson heard about a dying child, protocol didn't matter anymore. Michael walked into the medical bay unannounced. No entourage. No cameras. Just him. The mother looked up, saw him, and froze. Daniel, pale and weak in the wheelchair, opened his eyes. "Mom?" he whispered. "Is that?" Michael knelt down to eye level with the boy. Took off his white glove. Placed it in Daniel's small hand. "You keep this safe for me, okay? I need it back after the show." The boy nodded, too stunned to speak. Michael stood, turned to his tour manager. "He watches from the side stage. Right in my sight line. And when I perform She's Out of My Life, make sure I can see him." The manager started to protest about regulations, about liability, about "Make it happen," Michael said quietly. And that was that. 2 hours later, Michael Jackson took the stage to a roar that could be heard 3 miles away. 80,000 voices screaming his name. The show was flawless. "Bad. The Way You Make Me Feel." "Billie Jean." Every move perfect. Every note hit. This was Michael Jackson at his peak. Untouchable. But he kept glancing to the side of the stage. At the small wheelchair. At the boy still clutching the white glove. Then came the moment scheduled in the set list. She's Out of My Life. The ballad. The emotional peak of the show. Michael always cried during this song. It was part of the performance. The lights dimmed. The spotlight found him. He began singing. The crowd swayed with lighters in the air. Everything was going according to plan. Verse 1. Perfect. Verse 2. Michael's voice strong and clear. But then, as he hit the bridge, his eyes found Daniel. The boy was crying. Not sad crying. Joy crying. His mother beside him, also in tears. And Michael saw something else. Daniel was mouthing the words. Every single word. This dying child knew every lyric by heart. Michael Jackson's voice cracked. Not acting. Not performance. Real. His hand went to his mouth. The note died. The band kept playing for 3 seconds. 4. 5. Then they stopped. The entire stadium went silent. Michael stood there, under the spotlight, tears streaming down his face. 80,000 people didn't know what was happening. Was this part of the show? Was he okay? The silence stretched. 10 seconds. 15. Michael turned his head toward the side stage. Toward Daniel. And then Michael Jackson did something he'd never done before in any concert. He walked off stage. Mid-song. Mid-performance. He walked directly to Daniel. The crowd gasped. Confusion rippled through the arena. Michael knelt beside the wheelchair again. Took Daniel's hand. And spoke directly into his ear. Nobody else heard those words. Just Daniel. The boy nodded. Then smiled. The biggest smile. Michael stood, lifted Daniel out of the wheelchair, this small, fragile boy who weighed almost nothing, and carried him onto the stage. The crowd erupted. Not in applause. In shock. In awe. In confusion. Michael Jackson, carrying a child onto the stage of the biggest concert tour in history. He carried Daniel to the microphone stand. Set him down gently beside it. Daniel's mother was now at the side stage, crying so hard she could barely stand. Security didn't know what to do. The band didn't know what to play. Michael looked at them. Nodded. And they started. She's Out of My Life. Again. From the beginning. But this time, Michael didn't sing alone. He held the microphone down to Daniel's level. And that 7-year-old boy, dying of leukemia, sang with Michael Jackson. His voice was weak. Trembling. But he knew every word. And Michael Jackson, the king of pop, the biggest star on the planet, harmonized with him. Adjusted his voice to match Daniel's quiet tone. The crowd of 80,000 people went from silence to something else entirely. Some were crying. Some were cheering. But most were just witnessing something they'd never seen before, and would never see again. When the song ended, Michael lifted Daniel again. Carried him back to the side stage. Handed him to his mother. Took off his fedora, his signature fedora, and placed it on Daniel's head. Then Michael whispered something to the mother. She nodded, still crying. Michael walked back to center stage. The crowd gave him a standing ovation that lasted 4 minutes. But Michael wasn't taking bows. He was looking at Daniel. Making sure the boy was okay. Making sure he was smiling. And Daniel was. The biggest smile. The concert continued. Michael performed 10 more songs. Flawlessly. Like nothing had happened. But everything had happened. After the show, Michael's manager found him in the dressing room. Michael, that was incredibly risky. We could have been sued. The boy could have been hurt. The show could have. Michael cut him off. Did you see his face? The manager stopped. Did you see his face when he sang? Michael repeated. The manager nodded. Then it was worth it. Daniel lived 3 more weeks. He died at home, surrounded by family. He was buried wearing Michael Jackson's fedora. The white glove was in his hand. His mother later said that those 10 minutes on stage with Michael gave Daniel more joy than the entire rest of his life combined. She said he talked about it every day until he couldn't talk anymore. He sang, "She's Out of My Life," every night before bed. He told everyone who visited about the moment Michael Jackson carried him onto the stage. Subscribe and share this story. Make sure it never gets forgotten. The world needs to remember this. Michael Jackson never spoke publicly about that night. He never used it for publicity. Never mentioned it in interviews. It wasn't in the tour documentary. It wasn't in the official records. But 80,000 people were there. They remember. And many of them later said it was the most powerful moment they'd ever witnessed at any concert. Not because of the music. Not because of the dancing. But because they saw a superstar become human. They saw someone who could have kept singing, could have finished the performance, could have stayed in control, choose love instead. Here's what nobody knew until years later. Michael Jackson paid for Daniel's entire funeral. Anonymously. Through a lawyer. The family only found out when the funeral director told them the bill had been covered. Michael also started a fund for children with terminal illnesses to attend concerts. He called it the Daniel's Wish Foundation. It ran quietly, without publicity, until Michael's death in 2009. The white glove that Michael gave Daniel that night was returned to Michael by Daniel's mother after the funeral. She brought it to another concert, met with Michael privately, and tried to give it back. Michael refused to take it. "That's Daniel's glove now," he said. "You keep it for him." She still has it. She's given exactly one interview about that night, in 1995. She said, "Michael Jackson gave my son something no doctor could give him. He gave him dignity. He made Daniel feel like the most important person in the world. For those 10 minutes he wasn't a dying child. He was a singer. He was Michael's partner. He was alive." This is why Michael Jackson was the king of pop. Not because of the moonwalk. Not because of Thriller. But because when it mattered most, when the world was watching, when 80,000 people needed a show, he chose one child instead. He broke every rule. Stopped the biggest concert tour in history. Carried a dying boy onto stage. And let that boy sing with him. Not for cameras. Not for publicity. Because it was the right thing to do. Because that's who Michael Jackson really was. Share this video if you believe the world needs more moments like this. The fedora Daniel was buried and was placed in his grave by Michael Jackson himself. Michael attended the funeral. Privately. No press. No cameras. He stood in the back. And when they lowered the casket, Michael placed one more thing inside. A handwritten note. Nobody knows what it said. Daniel's mother never opened it. She said Michael whispered to her, "This is between me and Daniel now." And she respected that. That note went into the ground with Daniel, the fedora on his head, the white glove in his hand. And Michael Jackson cried. Not the performance tears from, "She's out of my life." Real tears. The kind that come from loss. From love. From knowing you gave someone their last moment of pure joy. What happened at Wembley that night rippled outward in ways nobody expected. Other parents of terminally ill children started writing to Michael's management. Hundreds of letters. Then thousands. Each one with a story. Each one with a child who loved Michael Jackson and didn't have much time left. Michael's team tried to handle them quietly, but Michael himself read every single letter. Every single one. His assistant later said he would stay up until 3 in the morning reading them, crying over them. Within 6 months, Michael had personally arranged for 32 terminally ill children to attend his concerts with backstage access. Not publicity stunts. Not photo ops. Private moments. He would spend 20 minutes with each child before shows. Sometimes he'd miss his vocal warm-ups. His vocal coach would get frustrated. But Michael didn't care. "These kids don't need my voice at 100%, he said. "They need to know someone sees them." One of those children was Maria, a 9-year-old from Spain with a brain tumor. She was too weak to attend the concert, so Michael went to her. He found out she was in a hospital in Madrid during his tour stop. He showed up unannounced at 11 p.m., after his concert. Still in stage makeup. Still wearing parts of his costume under a jacket. He sat by her bed for 2 hours. Sang to her quietly. Held her hand. The hospital staff tried to document it, but Michael refused. "This isn't for cameras," he said. "This is for Maria." Maria died 4 days later. But those 2 hours gave her family something they never expected: closure. Peace. Her father said in an interview years later. Maria was suffering so much. But that night with Michael, she was calm. She was happy. She fell asleep holding his hand. And when she died a few days later, she went peacefully. Because Michael Jackson had told her it was okay. That she'd be okay. I don't know if he believed in an afterlife or what his faith was. But he told my daughter she'd still be able to sing. That music doesn't die. And she believed him. The Daniel's Wish Foundation that Michael quietly started ended up funding over 12,000 concert experiences for terminally ill children before his death in 2009. But here's what's remarkable: Michael never announced it. Never took credit publicly. Never used it for positive press during the rough years when he was being attacked by media. His lawyer tried to convince him to go public with it during the trial period. This would change public perception overnight, the lawyer said. Michael refused. These kids aren't a PR strategy. They're kids. And they deserve privacy. When Michael died in 2009, Daniel's mother, now much older, gave her first and only television interview about that night at Wembley. She was asked why she'd stayed silent for so long. She said, "Because Michael asked me to. He said Daniel's story was sacred. That it belonged to Daniel, not to the media. And I honored that as long as I could. But now Michael is gone, and I want the world to know who he really was. Not the tabloid version. The real Michael Jackson. The one who cried over a dying boy. The one who put love before fame." That's the story nobody tells about Michael Jackson. That's the moment his voice broke and the world went silent. That's why he was more than a superstar. He was human. In the best way possible. Remember this. Share this. And keep Daniel's memory alive by being the kind of person Michael Jackson was in that moment. The kind who stops everything for one child. The kind who remembers that love is always more important than the show.